night after night. I would do my work to do electron microscopy. And it takes a good 3 days' work just to get something to look at. So I'm doing this over and over and over again. So one night, I went to the lab at midnight, and I had the electron microscope to myself until 8 the next morning. And then the next morning I'd take classes, I'd do my lab, and then I'd come home at dinner time, and I'd have dinner with the kids, I'd give them baths, and then we'd all go to bed early, and then go back to work at midnight. And that was a routine that went on for years. And so in all of this, I went down to the lab one night. My lab was up on the 4th floor. The EM was down in the basement. So I did all the preparation, and I turned the electron microscope to warm it up and pump the air out because the electron beam can't go through air. It has to have a vacuum. So I did all of that. I went upstairs and got my stuff down, and I did the routine stuff. And then in the middle of the night, must have been about 2 o'clock in the morning, I became angry. I went back to my lab. We had 200 proof alcohol sitting around. This is what we use. I drank 200 proof alcohol. And I climbed out the window, and I was going to jump. And I was going to push off the wall because I was going to have to jump off a little bit at an angle so they can find my body at the entrance to the science library at the University of Oregon. So I'm calculating all of this. In the meantime, I'm getting more intoxicated. I'm beginning to lose my balance. It's 4 floors down. And all of a sudden, in the middle of all of this, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It's my father's voice I heard. And his little tap, he did tap me on the shoulder the night I graduated from high school in 1962. And he said, "Son, your mother and I never went to school. We don't know how to advise you because we don't know anything about school. We didn't go to school. But what I've heard is that college is a rough place. It's hard. And lots of times people walk away from it. So I'm going to ask you to do the following. Can you make me a promise?" "Dad, what's the promise?" He says, "Well, the promise is when you're tired of going to school for you, don't walk away. Because when you come home, I'm going to ask you, son, did you walk away after you give me a year? Because the only way I can ever go to college is through you. Can you make me that promise?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, I'll promise. I promise." In that dark hour, those words came back. Oh, yes. I think that as human beings, we get discouraged. And when we get discouraged, we think of the unthinkable and say, well, it's time to check out. And I think it's part of everyday life, not everyday life, but part of everybody's life, because nobody's so strong that they never think about those things.